Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
Welcome to the Next Reel Speakeasy from rashpixel.fm. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
Speakeasy number 3.
Each month on the Next Reel Speakeasy, we invite an industry guest to join us. And instead of serving up their favorite cocktails, they serve up movies that they love so that we can all talk about them. We'd like to welcome our guest to this month's show, actress, author, and inspirational speaker, Dee Wallace. Hailing from the wilds of Kansas, Dee started her acting career working in bit parts on various TV shows and movies, before joining Wes Craven in 1977's The Hills Have Eyes. From there, she not only found an amazing career making horror and sci-fi films like The Howling, Critters, The Frighteners, The House of the Devil, and the recent Halloween remake, but she's also kept incredibly busy in seemingly every other genre, having now worked in over 130 films and scores of television roles and series. Dee has worked with a wide array of directors, including Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, Blake Edwards, and Rob Zombie. And who could forget her acting turns with Lassie or Cujo? In fact, Stephen King says he's still pissed that she didn't receive an Oscar nomination for her performance in Cujo, and I would agree with him on that one. But for most people of my generation, she'll always be our surrogate mother because of her role in E.T. Actor, acting coach, healer, radio show host, and self-confidence builder in children everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, Dee Wallace.
Wow, what an intro, guys. Thank you.
It is such a treat to watch you listen to Andy introduce you. We're watching each other. We're not recording the video stream, but we are watching each other on Skype. And what are you thinking as you hear that history?
You know, part of me goes, wow, I've really done that. Wow. And gosh, I guess I am all those things. You don't think about it because you just do it. It's just your life,
Yeah.
People keep telling me I don't value myself and everything I do enough. So I'm going to start tonight with y'all.
Oh, well, we will value you for sure.
Yeah. All right. So now, Dee, you brought a movie to the Speakeasy that you love and you'd like to recommend to all of our listeners. And wow, I think it's fair to say that this movie kind of broke me a little bit. So thanks for that.
Broke you. You have to expound on that.
I will. I will. But yes, this is the movie Room, the new movie that just came out last year, directed by Lenny Abrahamson. And I guess my first question for you, Dee, would be some people, they say like favorite movies are the ones that they've had a chance to withstand the test of time. But this is a pretty fresh movie. So how did you end up picking this one as one of your favorites to talk about?
You said it broke you. I guess it's the same in America as being moved.
Yes, it was a pretty devastating sort of experience for me.
Why did it devastate you?
I think it was because I have a 5-year-old son myself, in addition to my daughter. And so just kind of watching this young child have to go through some of the things that he had to go through and just kind of re-experience kind of this world that had just opened up to him, particularly once they kind of broke free from the room.
My favorite part of the movie is the first half. And I thought it was such a beautiful commentary about how little we need to make a whole world. He didn't know any different. He hadn't been introduced to anything more than his imagination in those four walls. I think it says something very interesting about the human consciousness. The more we're introduced to, the more we're affected by it. And really, the one of the statements in the movie for me was he was happier in the room. Once he got out of the room, he knew he had to expand and life had to expand. But life in the room was simple, and they knew what to expect, even though some of the moments weren't nice moments. They had their life managed. And
right, there was a structure.
Yeah, and when they left that room, there was a part of him that wanted to go back to it. And I think you can say that about all of our childhoods, whether they were happy or whether they weren't particularly. We want to go back to those times that moved us when we were innocent and everything was before us, and we really didn't need that much.
I love the concept of what you're talking about and what Room represents. There's a book that is, it doesn't involve sort of the kidnapping, but it is by a woman named Jane Smiley. It's called Goodwill. It's a novella, and it talks about a very similar thing. This parents, and there's sort of authoritarian father who goes to he's a back to the lander, and he buys this land, he builds a house by hand, and he has a child, and the child is fine. He is homeschooled. He learns to milk the cows and slaughter the sheep, and he does all the stuff of the farm. And he only runs into trouble once he is introduced to the culture at large, right? Once he has to find a way to integrate, where you have these two cultural identities that suddenly come into conflict with one another. And that for me is what that halfway point, that 50-minute point is at Room. It's when, the crushing scene for me is watching this kid forced into a level of independence to jump out of this truck and meet the real world in such a shocking way. And the way that was depicted was I'm with Andy. I was broken too. As soon as the movie was over, I found myself, it was 12:15 at night. I couldn't stop the movie, and I went up into my children's room and I put my hand on them because I had to touch them. I had to be near them.
You guys are really wussy. You know, the film got over and I went, yeah, that was a good, effective. Yeah, that affected me. That was good.
Oh, yeah. No, it
you know, and I watched it with my daughter, who's now 27, but also my best friend. And it's interesting. She's a very good actress in her own right. And we were sitting there kind of, well, being critics, you know,
course,
and
yeah.
what we liked and what we didn't like. And she was like me. She liked the first of the movie. I mean, I love the whole movie, but I think the brilliance of the movie is before they leave the room. I hated William Macy's character.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It was just flipping over the top, and not that he played it as a caricature, but I think it was written as a caricature.
It was terribly written. Why did he even have to be in there? I get that they were divorced, but it was such a dumb fly-by-night character that we could have done without it and gotten the point.
It's like, let's nail it on the head. Some people are going to judge you for being the child of a rapist.
Yep.
Really?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that did hit the nail on the head a little too hard.
Especially because the surrogate dad, the Leo, that was his name, right? Leo?
Yeah, Leo.
He was so terrific at taking up the mantle, the paternal mantle. He was just terrific. And so I totally agree. I am vindicated.
And, you know, it was interesting, too. The one thing that Gabrielle and I, neither one bought was the fight between the mother and the daughter. It just wasn't real to me. Other than that, I think it's an absolutely phenomenal movie with some really great statements. And one of the beautiful moments for me was that innocence in the truck. When he's in the truck and looking up at the trees and the sky and the vastness of this freedom. And it's so simply done, but it's so full and so beautiful. That's the part that brought me to tears.
Well, I think that's what Lenny Abrahamson, the director, and his DP Danny Cohen captured so well was like the perspective from Jack. They really focused on little details, both in the room, like you kept seeing little shots of the sink or the wallpaper or just whatever it was, things that were part of his world that you just focused on and you really got to know those details. I loved how they really brought you to his perspective through all of that stuff. And likewise, like you said, once he is out past, the skylight, the only view of the outside world he has, and he actually sees the trees and sees the sky and sees everything, and he just takes it all in. I really loved how they kept bringing those details back. And even when he's in the house, you see the little details of him just like looking at something through the perspective of the banisters on the railing and things like that. I mean, they really kept that perspective for us through the whole film.
Well, and also the banisters and everything, see, it was another way to kind of hold him in. He was safer when he was held in, when it was smaller. He was safer when there wasn't so much freedom. And actually, Brie's character was not happier, but less tormented when she was in the room. When she had to deal with her mother and her bigot father and the neighbors and how they were judging her and all the judgment out there, and her own, oh my God, I have to decide, what am I going to do with me now? I've been able to blame the lack of who I am, for want of a better phrase, on the fact that I've been kept hostage here and captive here. But now I have to step out and take responsibility for myself. It's a beautiful juxtaposition of the pros and cons of staying small and growing bigger and freedom and captivity. I just thought it was a really interesting study about human nature within those confines.
I think there are certain sort of categories of films that really allow you to explore this alternate perspective. When you look at sort of maybe Orange is the New Black or Oz or sort of the prison shows, and there are the more sort of grotesque takes on this, the horror takes, the kidnapping, the buried alive stuff. You get the kidnapping stuff, but this is the rare film, I think, for me that gives you the opportunity, the sort of playground to really internalize what it means to be. And I think Brie captured it really well, what it means to be taken from the world and put into such a compressed space and let us kind of live through that experience. I think that's what I love so much about the first part and the transition to the second part, that for her, life becomes that much more difficult on freedom.
Yeah, I am. You loved her.
Yeah.
You loved her so much for creating this fantasy that allowed him to be happy.
Yes.
You loved her for, creating a world out of a room and a world that was full for him, where he was very happy. I mean, it was, gosh, I would hope if I were ever in the position, I could be as creative as that character was.
Well, and on the other side of that, there's the moment when you start to hate her, when she sits down across from him and starts trying to tell him the truth. And that was something I told you because you were too young, she says. You wouldn't have understood it, she says. And that's the part where your heart starts to break a little bit, because you're thinking, oh my God, she is about to just shatter this kid's reality. That is, even though it is in the context of kidnapping, it is the child of born of rape, it is still miraculously precious. That they made it feel precious in this context, and that's when I started to just hate a little bit. I was so mad.
Oh, see, and I had a whole different reaction to that, because I thought, yes, this is the strength that a mother has to have. She's got to save her kid. This is the chance that she has, as frightening as it is for her, as daunting as it is to send her kid out there. This is where her character really shines through. This is the arc that, as an actress, I would love to play.
Well, that was one of my questions for you. Just thinking about the kind of the archetypes of moms that you have played. Right? Because there's different...
I've played about every kind of mom there is.
You really have kind of played the spectrum of moms. Like, what are you thinking about as you're sitting there in the role of a critic who has devoted as much of your professional career to thinking about these kinds of topics when you look at Brie and Jacob's performances?
Very much like the relationship that you saw in Cujo.
Yes. And the same sort of context, right? You're kind of trapped in this confined space for much of the film.
Yeah, I thought she did an absolutely brilliant job. I really did. And I felt like I was looking through a keyhole at a real mother and son. And I don't think you can ask any more of an actress than that.
I think what worked so well for me is that we're watching her in create this fantasy world for Jack, so that he's got this world and he's got his routine and he's got everything going on. But we also really see the parenting side of that coming through. We see her frustrations dealing with him and her struggling with patience when, his little 5-year-old perspective doesn't jive with how she's trying to guide things. Yeah. And I think there was so much strength in that. And watching her in this situation, I was like, geez, I should take some parenting lessons from her. I mean, she's doing such a good job at managing her frustration and anger with her child, right?
If only we all had a script as a parent.
Right, exactly.
and a really good director.
Hallelujah.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. And one of the things, and there's actually a few movies out up for the awards now. It's been so refreshing to see these smaller, more intimate, more relationship films surfacing as the winners. The Danish Girl.
Oh.
Yeah, beautiful, incredible film. That thing, and I can't even really tell you why it haunted me so much. Haunted me for days after I watched it.
Would you say it broke you?
No, I wouldn't say it broke me. Things that are really hard for me to watch, that I get angry about, about the injustice and everything. Sexual stuff doesn't break me. Sexual stuff doesn't break me, babe. But the stuff about injustice, a lot of the slave stuff is really hard for me to watch. I'm still trying to gear up to watch Beasts of No Nation because I just don't know if I can.
Yeah. See,
that's my wussy side.
I'm just glad to know you have one. That makes me feel better.
Well, after 20, 30 years of playing heroines in horror films, I don't get wussified real easy. Pete. I'm always the blonde that makes it, and the monsters don't.
That's true.
I just did a great little film in Australia called Red Christmas. And, I took it because it was another tour de force, female head of the family, saving everybody kind of picture. It's a really interesting picture, but I truthfully didn't know if I could still do it. And I did all my own stunts and everything.
How'd you do? Did you walk away with any injuries? Did you walk away? Do you feel you're feeling as strong now as you did before you started?
I have a couple of marks for life on my leg.
There you go. Red badge of courage.
Another badge.
There you go.
But I'm sure if you talk to Brie, there's a part of her. You can get scarred from doing films in a variety of ways. I'm still on adrenal medicine from Cujo because it just blew out my adrenals. Totally.
No kidding.
Wow.
See, your body doesn't understand that you're acting. Any Olympic athlete that's why they work so much on imagination and taking themselves through imagining all the slopes and everything, because your body does not differentiate between imagination and reality. And so when you're doing a film, much like Room, where you're in fight or flight all the time, your adrenals get whacked. And, that's why, the famous story of Vivian Leigh, who never came back from Streetcar.
Right.
You guys just think these are easy gigs. We give our lives for these parts.
Let me tell you, we have done Cujo on this very show, and there was nothing about that conversation that implied it was easy. That was terrifying. Even today.
I still watch that. I'm like, how are they doing this? That dog seems so vicious.
You want to know how? There were 13 dogs, and they were all trained to go after different toys. So we had to tie their tails down so you couldn't see them wagging. And on action, Louis Teague, our fabulous director, and Carl Miller, who trained all the dogs, he'd go, dig for that toy. And so, and so they looked very ferocious from their butt up. But at the same time, we weren't damaging the dogs too much because it was a game for them.
Sure. Totally different.
Everybody was very focused on taking care of the dogs, not so focused on taking care of Dee.
Exactly. Best job they ever had.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
But I thought, I think it's a real injustice that Jacob didn't get nominated.
That's what I was going to ask you about. I mean, having worked with some incredible child actors yourself, I mean, this kid was just a dominant force in this film. He was unbelievable.
Yeah. It really was just an incredible performance. And I know he was a little older. I think he was 8 when they made this, and he was playing a 5-year-old. But I tell you, I mean, he was just spot on perfect through this whole thing, and I was right there with him. The fact that it was from his perspective and that he did such a good job, I mean, it really brought me in with him through the whole film.
Oh, he was bloody amazing, that kid. You're so funny. You said, well, he was 8, so of course he was better than if he'd been.
I know.
He's got those 3 extra years to think about what it was like when he was
so sophisticated.
3 more years to get into his head. Listen, the best actors I work with are kids.
Yeah.
They're just there. They're just there in the moment, unless their mothers get a handle on them too much. They're just there playing with you. But this kid he really, really should have been up. Of course, you can say that about so many of the performances this year. There's so much amazing competition.
Yeah, it's always hard when they limit it to 5 performances. It's like, gosh, there's a lot more than 5 good performances this year.
Well, and it's interesting, too, to see what kinds of pictures. The Academy always, you can do a great performance in a horror film. You are never going to be up for an award. No, they just don't take them as serious pictures, really hard films like Compton, it's not really the kind of film that gets put up for an Academy Award. It's the kind of film that doesn't have anything to do with anything else. And so if you look at the films that the critics love and you look at the films that get up for the awards, usually they're not the big blockbuster. They're the small, intimate, somewhat easy to watch, critic kind of movie. And those are the people that usually get nominated. I'm quite surprised that Joy's up myself. I don't get it, but I think there were a lot of other pictures that should have been up instead of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and nothing against Joy. I mean, it was, but it was a similar thing last year for me with Birdman. Like or was that 2 years ago now? I mean, it was like that was a movie that I watched and I walked out and I thought that'll be a movie I don't need to see again. And
I didn't get it. I understood. I understood why everybody was so impressed with it.
Yeah,
because it was so different, and I understood why everybody was more impressed with the performances than they would have been with those performances in a regular movie. Did you get what I'm saying? The movie itself was so special and so different and so unique that it kind of swept everything along with it. Not that every single performance in there wasn't good, but I think if it had been if those performances had been in a film like E.T., they would not have moved people the way they did in a film like that, because it was just so
spectacle,
flippin' weird.
Yeah.
Weird and different in a critic film, Let me tell you, sometimes when we're looking for a film to go to and I go, well, what did the critics say? Because if the critics really loved it, usually I don't. It's true.
Yeah, I buy that.
It's a very intellectual look at a film, and I think a film should be made to move you.
There is a level of film out there that is very intellectual, and I do have a much harder time getting into intellectual films than I do films that wrap me up emotionally.
Yeah, although it was just so breathtaking to see, for me this year, to see really solid performances like Brie and Jacob and The Danish Girl, and even Bridge of Spies, beautiful, nuanced performance there. When I saw it, I said, he's going to be up for an award. If he's not, it's a sin.
Yeah, he was great in that film.
Oh my gosh, and so subtle and so brilliant. Yeah. So it was lovely to have some of those real solid relationship kind of films where you're not relying on no story and a lot of special effects.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we've been, talking about all sorts of different things, but I want to talk to you about some monsters for a second there, about this.
I know nothing about monsters.
You know nothing about monsters. So I see like there's three antagonistic characters really in this film. Well, that are kind of depicted that way. We've already talked about William H. Macy briefly, and just kind of the little bit on the nose portrayal that he had of the guy who just views this child as a monster. But then there's also Wendy Crewson playing the media. She's the media side of things, the reporter who does the interview, and of course Sean Bridgers, who plays plays old Nick. And I think it's just interesting. I mean, my favorite, Wendy Crewson, I think was just really designed to just make you hate the media. I mean, it got the reaction from the crowd that I think that they were expecting people to get, But Sean Bridgers,
it was a pretty true portrayal myself.
I did too. I did. I just felt that like, oh, of course, this is how it goes, And I see these interviews like when was it Elizabeth Smart? Yeah. When she did like her interview after her whole experience, I always ask myself, why are these people doing these interviews? I would not want to be around any of that. And then you see in this film, you've got the legal side of things, pushing you to do it because, hey, this is going to cost a lot of money. We need to find a way to pay for it somehow. This would help. And, I feel so bad for these people who've gone through this, who get pushed into doing these sorts of things, and just like the trauma that it ended up creating for her. It was awful.
I think the media was used to portray what was going on in her subconscious anyway, that was going to have to come out for her to deal with.
Which part? What are you speaking of specifically?
The part, gosh, I can't remember exactly what the line is, but basically it was, couldn't you have been a better mother if you had whatever that line was?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you had encouraged him to take your son and given him away.
Yes. And as a mother, I know that would obviously be going on within me, whether I'm conscious of it or not. So instead of playing that out or saying it in exposition, we got to see it happen with the media. So that worked on two sides for me, both a commentary on what's going on within her character and what the media is, as we all know. I mean, the only time the Enquirer ever came to my house was when Chris died.
Jeez.
And I opened the door, and this little girl standing there like a scared chicken. And she said, "Miss Wallace, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm from the Enquirer." And I looked at her and I said, "Really? You are not doing this. You never came before, and you're coming now that he's dead?" And she said, "Please, I'm so sorry. It's my job. I'm so sorry." And I said, "I'll give you one quote. He was my best friend." And that's all they got. They put the rest of it. But it comes with the territory, guys. It comes with the business.
Well,
everybody wants to know everything about us, and unfortunately they do. And then you have people, pardon me, like the Kardashians that come out and go, "Oh, well, let's make it really in vogue to show our butts and our tits and our sex lives and our drugs and everything. And we're going to show it openly," which gives everybody else kind of the message that that's okay. And they should know all that stuff about us,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I think was done really well, and I appreciate your perspective that the use of the media was to play out what was going on in her head. I did not see that, and I think that's just my perspective. Watching the film, I did not bring that to it because I come to it from a perspective of journalism and broadcasting, and to me, William H. Macy, Sean Bridgers, and Wendy Crewson together are the monster in this film. I mean, it is the outside world that became the monstrosity that she now has to face. That
really, William Macy's character was as much, if not more, of a monster.
Totally.
As Nick.
Because he represents yet this additional thing that's going to bite you. It's going to just nibble at your flesh until you are bones, and that drives her to do the unthinkable thing, because you think she just had this incredible moment of triumph and she accomplished this great thing. She had a plan. She taught and encouraged her child to do this unbelievably difficult thing and escape, and that is something to be celebrated. And for her, meeting the monster on the other side of that skylight, on the other side of that door, led to her going down the road of suicide. And that was just a horrifying example of the monsters that exist in the world, and how unfair is it that when she meets the world again, she's not faced with joy and reconciliation and warmth and welcoming. She's faced with legal fees.
Well, and she's faced with, come on, mothers and fathers are supposed to be the most understanding, nurturing, they're supposed to be your safe haven.
Right.
Right. And she comes home and, as sort of patient as the mother was, she was cold. I thought she played her very cold. I would not have played her that way, but and so the people who are supposed to be the antithesis of your monsters become the biggest monsters in your life. And I think the room itself went back and forth between being the monster and the saving grace.
The nest.
Yeah.
And that was a really touching part at the end when he wanted to go back to room and wanted to kind of have that sense again of that space. And it was so interesting that by the time they actually do go back there, it's almost like he now realizes that room is not what he thought it was. And the way that he goes back and he's like, wow, is it always this small? Did they shrink it? I can't remember exactly what he said, but just that perspective that all of a sudden he had, where it was so tiny and nothing seemed the way that it was. And so he ended up creating, all he had left really was the mental image of what room was for him.
Well, I think it's brilliant too that it's room and not the room.
So why?
Right.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it's a person. Like Pete, Andy, Dee, room. That was its name. It became a person for them.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you could say the same thing about womb. I mean, for him, he was born from his mother, but he wasn't born to the world until he was 5 or 7. I mean, he had this extra long gestation period that I think makes this kind of the ultimate coming of age story. Weirdly, I mean, you think we're wussies talking about the first part of the movie. I mean, when he goes back and they say goodbye to all these things in the thing and walk out of the yard, I was a mess.
Well, it's nice to know there are sensitive, open-hearted men out there, guys.
Where were you when I was looking for my wife? You could have been. You were a great marketer for sensitive new age guys like us.
Absolutely. I have been all my life, too.
Have you read the book?
No.
Neither have I. Andy, did you ever read the book?
No, I haven't. I was curious about it. That Emma Donahue, is it Donahue? Is that how you say that?
Donahue, yeah.
Donahue.
We'll take that for right now, Andy.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. I thought it was interesting. I looked a little bit at it, and I saw that she had kind of come up with this idea. She heard about this child, 5-year-old Felix, in the Fritzl case, which I wasn't aware of. But
have you heard about this, Dee?
It's a
mind-numbingly dark.
Dark story. that it's almost a level worse than this. It's a father who, when his daughter's 24, traps her into like a secret room he's built in the basement and then keeps her captive there. No, she wasn't 24. She was like 17, but he kept her there for 24 years and had like seven children with her, two of whom died. And
three of them he raised with his wife, who didn't know that the daughter was in the basement. And they raised these three children as foundlings. And the others were kept in prison in the basement.
I have one thing to say about that wife. Get a life.
Yeah.
If you don't know there's somebody in your basement, then you're not really very present in the world. I know if there is a rat in my attic. Come on. I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy that she ignored it and shut it out and purposely decided not to know it, but I don't believe that on some levels she didn't know it.
I think that there's something with the mom, the reason that she kind of bought into everything that the husband told her. Yeah, it's a disturbing sort of story that it sounds like after the daughter and all of her children came out, she actually ended up kicking the mom out of their place because she basically felt similar to how you feel, that mom wasn't present enough and was not aware.
Oh, come
on. She should have been aware of these things.
It's like, oh, honey, you found another lost kid and we can keep her? Oh,
right,
that's great. That's like, Sharon saying, I didn't know they were shooting me up there. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
If you're present, stuff like that, and you have any kind of mentality in you at all, even things like this incense me.
Truly. Yeah. Well, and that's what I think makes this.
Now that would have broken me. That would have broken me.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think makes the story so fascinating. And I think, but Andy, did you discover anything about the changes from the book to the production?
The only thing that I could tell just reading, I only read just kind of the brief little synopsis. It sounded like they talked a little bit more about what happens to old Nick after he gets caught. And I know you kind of get a tiny bit of that with the kind of in the news story here, but this one in the book, it sounded like there was more giving a sense as to what actually happened to him. He's found.
Moviegoers are not going to care about old Nick as long as he gets it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was the thing. I sort of walked away thinking, gosh, if there's one element of this that I personally would have been more satisfied with is actually knowing that he got, seeing the just desserts. I needed something a little bit more redemptive about that. That would have, I think, unfortunately, probably come by way of the media, which may have been too redemptive on behalf of the media, which they were, I think, using in a different way.
And I think, too, a director and a filmmaker has to decide how to hold the focus on what he wants the focus of the film to be, right, and the statement of the film to be. And the statement of the film was not about old Nick. It was about the relationship between the mother and the son, and the subjects of freedom and containment. And where those played out everywhere in their lives. It's like, in E.T., there was a whole secondary story where E.T. had a love affair with Mary. And ultimately, it dissipated the focus of what the film was about, which was about Elliot and E.T.
That's fascinating.
You were going to ask me ages ago about monsters. Did you ever ask me?
I'm glad you brought that up. I was actually going to ask you, because we already talked about two of them at least. Sean Bridgers. I don't know what you guys thought, but I really enjoyed the way that they wrote him as old Nick, and the way that they really portrayed this creepy character who really seemed kind of fleshed out. I enjoyed that he seemed just like a guy. It didn't seem like, oh, well, he's a creepy guy who is, of course he's the one who kidnapped somebody and kept him in his shed because he's a creep. he just seemed kind of like, oh, he's a guy. If they were just in the house, it would have seemed like kind of a distant a husband who's not quite there, you know?
Yeah, if you had put them on a farm, he could have been, you know, an old gruff farmer that just didn't care about taking care of his family.
Yeah, you know, for me, when I realized he was human, was the when he came in and was using her as sort of his conscience when he was telling her, you know, I lost my job. Like when they were having that moment, it felt the most like a couple, a very strange couple, but that they had actually a fleshed out relationship to the point where he could be, in a sense, vulnerable with her in a really damaged way. And I thought that ended up being a really powerful element.
Yeah, I agree. And when he went to get the medicine,
yeah,
you know, he wasn't without redeeming value, which made him in some ways more scary because he was real, and monsters aren't real.
Well, and that's what I love, that they wrote him that way. And I guess it is a little disappointing that that William H. Macy's character was written so it was so straight up. This is exactly what this character is here for, and that's it.
Yeah, but I think, and I love William H. Macy, but
I do too.
As an actor, I think there were colors that he could have brought in around being more tormented with himself about the fact that he was so disgusted about this, that would have allowed us to go, yeah, I understand it. I understand you more. I don't like who you are, but I'm not so angry that I don't want to watch the picture.
That's an interesting bit of perspective, because I get torn between picturing this as the way the character was played versus the way the character was written. And in this case, I immediately went down the line of this character was underwritten. But you say that there's a way that Macy could have played this and satisfied more of your needs.
I think there's always a way that you can find the soul in a character, and to portray the struggle that they're going through with themselves. There was a part of him that knew this was wrong and he didn't want to do it. But I don't feel like the audience was allowed to see enough of that to really take that in. And I think that would have made a big difference in that character. I do. We as actors, we have to find the truthfulness of every moment. For example, if he had played that exactly the same way and was on the verge of tears, you would have understood his conflict.
If he'd worn that a little bit more on his sleeve.
Obviously, this was a choice that he and the director made. It's not a choice that worked for me. Mm-hmm. Or it seems for either one of you. I know in Cujo, there's that moment where he keeps saying, I want my daddy, and I take him and I go, all right, I'll get you your father.
Yeah.
Right? And Dan Black came to me the next day and said, oh, Dee, I need you to come look at these dailies. I think maybe we need to reshoot this. I think the audience is not going to like you. I went and looked at it and I said, Dan, I think you're crazy if you don't have the guts to use this. Because every parent in the world has felt that frustration, has lost it with their kid and been sorry they lost it with their kid and felt guilty, but they were just pushed so far in a situation that they couldn't control. So if you had not seen the love between me and the boy, and if you hadn't experienced everything that we'd gone through, then that moment would make the audience not like me. But I really believe that the audience is going to look at that and go, oh my God, I've so been there.
Well, that's the third dimension. Absolutely.
You telling me that as fathers, you've never had moments where you've lost it with your kids and wish you hadn't?
Oh my goodness. You are just describing why I felt at the end of this film I had to go touch my children in their sleep, because that movie made me realize what I look like when I'm at my not very best. When I get frustrated at the experience that I'm having there, that's the perspective that I got from this movie, from watching her have to recalibrate every time she got right near that edge of breaking when she got frustrated. That is the parental vibe that hit me. That's that third dimension that you're talking about. I just that's what makes me feel.
Well, and it's an interesting thing because I don't know if this is kind of the way that you're describing it, but when he came up and told you that, it seemed like there's a certain element of him saying, "Hey, as an actress, do you want to be seen looking this way?" You know, it seems like he was almost thinking more about you and your concern about your
No, I think
like what
he was,
your public perception would be over what the character would be.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he knew that if he lost any sympathy from the audience for the mother or the boy or the relationship, the movie would be in jeopardy. And he thought that moment might. And I thought that moment would solidify for the audience, this is a real relationship with a mother who loves her son and loves her son so much that she loses it because she can't save him.
Well, and we definitely see that in Brie here. I mean, she has so many of those points throughout this film, and we get to kind of witness so much of that as she struggles with all of that, all the way through her attempted suicide and everything. I mean, she really, I was really kind of blown away by her performance. I don't think I've seen her in a whole lot, but man, I mean, it was pretty stunning to watch her, just a raw performance here.
And I love it that my business, will embrace a newcomer like that and judge just for the performance.
When speaking of, for me, the direction and the just general placement of camera, the more interesting perspective is the first, again, 50 minutes. And, I want to talk just briefly about your take on how they portrayed the constrained space of the room. The work between Lenny Abrahamson and Danny Cohen, just showing us this sort of interesting take on, I don't know, I'll use the word materialism. You've already talked about Andy, you brought up the sort of the way they capture the objects and the way they have built relationships with these objects. How they shoot these objects, I think, was particularly special.
Well, they made them alive. They made everything in that room something that was alive to him. That's why he would say, good morning, good morning, stool, hi, window, hi, very much like we'd get up and we'd go hi to our teacher. And, it was they were his touchstones. And I think it was brilliant the way it was shot, and it's so difficult for a DP to find different, interesting, varied angles to keep one set alive for that long. It's really an amazing talent. We had to do it. I mean, what Jan de Bont did with the car in Cujo was amazing. The car literally became a thing.
Right.
And I think even the way that the actors handled the props and handled the things and hung up, they would show us her washing the clothes and hanging it up on a line, in a very microcosm way. They were leading the same life as we live every day.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's I loved how they actually shot it, because like when he's in the bathtub, everything is so close, the camera is so close that it almost feels like a different space than when they're over working in the kitchen area or when they're at the bed or in the wardrobe area. And even though it's all in the same space, they shot it in such a way where it actually really feels kind of separated. And
because for them it was.
Right, exactly.
And that little tiny room had all those different places of life for them. And the camera always represents either the voyeur watching or the character's perspective and interaction around where they are at and with the other actors. And that's what the camera was doing the whole time, was creating their relationships with this very small but very large world.
Is it interesting that the potentially the contrast here that Danny Cohen as DP is also the man behind The Danish Girl that you've already mentioned. Another just gorgeous, very, very different.
Very different.
Very different film.
Beautiful film.
Yeah.
Amazing performances there. That was just a haunting film for me.
But you know what's funny about it is that when you look at the transformation of space that we get in Room, the transformation of person in The Danish Girl ends up being a very sort of similar motif that I think he captures really beautifully. I think that ends up being...
That's interesting observation. That's very true.
Telling a story in film form from a child's perspective can be very difficult. I don't know very many films that really do a very good job of sticking with it as far as keeping it from that perspective. I think E.T. is a great example, actually, but you don't get it too often. And I think maybe, I don't know if directors, it's just hard to tell a story from that perspective. I know they always say, oh, kids and animals, but I mean, I think...
Honey, I wouldn't have a career.
I know, that is your career.
Seriously.
But I think Lenny does a great job here. Now, I hadn't seen his other films. Had you seen, what was the one he just did? It was Frank, right?
Frank, which was awesome.
I didn't see Frank.
Oh,
I missed that one too.
People, it was one of my very favorites. It's so unbelievably wacky. I mean, it's just crazy. But you talk about just redemption. It is such a beautiful redemptive story. So different than Room. It is just the other end of the spectrum, and I think demonstrates this guy's fantastic just ability to adapt to the story. I mean, it's beautiful.
I'm going to go get it.
Put it on your list. You will want to wear a giant head everywhere you go after you see this film.
Okay, yeah.
It's that good.
All righty then.
Yeah. But I haven't seen anything else that he did. What Richard did, I know, is another one that was supposedly worth seeing. The rest, Garage, Adam and Paul, a couple of episodes of Prosperity. I haven't seen any of it, just Frank and Room. But this film really cements it. This makes me want to, really watch out for his name as new projects come up. But B, I want to fill in the blanks because I really enjoyed this.
I'd have to see Frank, but just from watching this, I mean, I really love how he handles the story, how he handles his actors. I think that he really allowed them to kind of just explore these performances. I enjoyed them quite a bit.
There seemed to be a lot of freedom, you know. I would hope so. I would hope that Brie and Jacob were given a lot of freedom within the confines of what they had to do. You know, it appeared that way. It appeared they had a beautiful connection with each other.
Oh yeah, they really felt like a natural pair. They absolutely did. You
know, bottom line, if the relationship between them doesn't work, you don't have a movie, period.
As somebody who's been a mom in a lot of movies, I am sure you have the experience of that. You have to really create that connection with the child performer.
Is that a strange thing? I've always wondered as I wrap my head around these kinds of relationships when I look at Brie and Jacob, the act of developing intimacy with a child actor. I mean, you use the word sort of, they just want to play with you, and I hear that, but I have trouble taking it as lightly as you portray it.
You know, it's so easy working with a good child actor. It's just easy. It's a lot easier than working with really good adults. Because really good adults are going, well, maybe we should do it this way. Well, what do you think about that? Well, you know, they get into these head trips, and kids are just in the moment. They're just in the moment having fun. I mean, come on. Kids, you know, they come in and go, let's play Peter Pan. Okay, you're Peter Pan and you're Captain Hook and you're Tinkerbell, and no, I want to be, all right, you be Tinkerbell. And, you know, they don't go, well, God, I don't have any wings. I don't know. What's my motivation really to fly over there? You know, kids don't get into all that stuff. They just go, yeah, okay, let's play. I'll even be the alligator. Rawr, rawr, rawr. You know, so for me, working with kids is joyful. Danny Pintaro and Henry, effortless. It was effortless working with those kids. Effortless.
They were, we're in a perspective just watching movies. I mean, they stand out as terrific child actors. Jacob, I think, is there. Now I'm going to forget his name. He sees dead people. You may know him from seeing Dead People.
Oh,
Haley
yeah.
Joel Osment.
Right,
Yeah.
Haley Joel Osment. It was terrific. But they are in sort of a class by themselves. We've seen a lot of child actors that have been, it's troublesome to find their way into the story from the outside in. And so I'm always curious what it means to be cast opposite someone who doesn't have the ability to overthink, I guess. And
well, I love it. For me, it's easy. It's just easy. I have a series on right now on Amazon Prime called Just Add Magic, with 3 lovely young preteen, early teen girls, and it's just a joy working with all of them. With all of them, they're professional, they're beautiful, they're in the moment, they're spontaneous. You know, I just like working with kids, and I like working with dogs. I'm a big dog lover. Although I have to tell you, Lassie, the dog that we had in the new Lassie was just dumb.
Oh no!
I don't know how else to. They found this direct descendant, right, from the real Lassie.
Oh, no.
And so they created the whole thing around this dog. Well, he was a direct descendant of Lassie, but unfortunately he had just been a house pet ever since he was born. And so they were trying to train this dog to do all these kind of things, and this dog was not going to have anything to do with it. So we used Lassie's stand-in and stunt dog a lot.
Oh, how funny.
The dogs on Cujo, my God, they were just trained within an inch of their life. Really beautiful.
That's so
It's
good.
so funny.
Oh,
So
my
funny.
goodness.
Well, I have a question, because talking about kids, it made me think about something, and I'm sure this is something you've had to deal with in some of the films that you've been in, where you've got a really dark story, but then you also have such a young person involved in it. I know you weren't on the set of Room, but obviously there's a darkness to the story. I mean, would they go into the detail talking to Jacob about this, or just kind of give him a semi-clean version
Depends on the
of
director, and it depends on the kid.
Yeah.
No, he was old enough probably at that point to know the difference between reality and fantasy. Drew
He was 8.
Drew would walk up to E.T. and start talking to him in the corner. So Stephen had somebody working E.T. all the time to keep E.T. alive for Drew. It just depends. I mean, Danny, because I'm awfully careful when I work with kids, and I say, okay, this scene, the monster's coming in, but we know it's not a real monster. We're just acting, right? And afterwards, I would say, okay, well, the doggy looked really mean that time, but we know he's just going after a toy, right? Because literally, kids cannot distinguish between reality and fantasy until they're about 5 years old. They go in and out. And so Danny, we got to that scene, where he had to have his seizure, right?
Right.
And I said, so are you okay doing this? Are you scared? Or he looks at me, he says, Dee, when I was little, he was like 5, right? When I was little, I had one of these. You want to see? And he went, right? And then he looked at me and he said, "Pretty good, huh?" And I went, "Okay, I so don't have to worry about this kid." He was an old soul, that kid. And we would get through those hysterical scenes, and both of us would be crying, and we'd have to get ourselves back together, and he'd come up to me and go, "We were pretty good, weren't we? That was pretty dramatic, Dee." So.
Oh, that's so good.
But it depends on the child, and it depends on the director, and it depends on the mother.
So, Andy, are you keeping up with how this is performing?
Yes, I am.
You have some numbers for us?
I've been keeping up on it. Yeah, so this film cost about $6 million to make. So it's a decent little budget for a film. Ended up.
That's what we call low budget. Come on.
That is low budget, yes. It ended up making twice that back domestically, about just over 12 million, and internationally a little over 6 million. So all told, it made a little over 18 million, which boiled down to about 109,000 per finished minute.
Not bad for a small movie like this when it's up against movies like The Revenant and The Big Short, and it's just a terrific.
It'll make more after the Academy Awards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very solid film, and I think that it deserves. I mean, it's up for 4 Oscar nominations: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay by Emma. I believe she wrote the screenplay herself. Yes. Best what else? Best Director and Best Actress.
Deserved all over, with the exception of the missing award for Jacob.
For Best Actor, yes.
Yeah, I think he should have gotten something. Dee, have you heard of a Flick Chart?
I have. I looked at it a little bit today, but it was kind of technical.
Well, we're going to make it as non-technical as we can.
You know me and technology.
You are going to not only are you going to love it, I'm sure. You're going to open your very own account, and you'll spend all your time on it, and you'll have to be pulled away. Because
I'll let you know when that happens.
Please, I'll be standing by.
Keep us informed.
So the whole purpose here of Flick Chart, D, is that we get a chance to rate this movie against the list of other movies that we have already talked about on this show. And it is a 1-to-1 ranking. It is Room versus other films, regardless of genre, regardless of tone, regardless of theme, any year, anything else. It's just which movie would you want to put on right now if these were the only 2 movies that you had. And so we have a large list of movies that we have talked about over the last 4.5 years. And the Flick Chart just runs us through about 8 or 10 of them. And then we'll see where Room lands on our list. If we run into a movie that you have not seen, never fear. Andy and I will rank it. But I am sure that you will have no problems with this. Again, future Flick Chart addict, Dee Wallace. Andy, let us begin.
All right. So first up, we have Room or The Bad Seed.
Oh, hands down.
Definitely
Room, yes.
That was an easy one. All right. Room or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Room.
I'm going to say Room. This is a favorite for you.
It is one of my faves. I'd probably go Eternal Sunshine, but Room takes it 2-1. All right, Room or National Lampoon's Vacation?
Room.
Oh, Room.
Yeah, definitely Room. Room or Brazil?
Room.
That is my favorite movie, so I'm going to go with Brazil. Pete?
I think I'm going to have to stand on Room, Andy.
All right.
It's not only because I'm sucking up to D right now.
I paid in.
That's right. I know. Room or Touch of Evil?
Room.
Oh, I did like that Touch of Evil. Something awful.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Talk
Touch
about
of Evil.
Monsters.
I know.
I think I'm gonna have to go Touch of Evil on this one.
Oh,
boo! Room or Alien?
Oh.
That's a tough one.
I have to go Alien.
It's such different pictures, guys.
I know. This is
this is what we call a flick chart hate crime. You have no choice. You have only 2 movies on the shelf.
Like Wizard of Oz and Psycho.
Yes.
right, exactly.
You get it.
I think I got to go with Alien on that one.
All right. Room or All the President's Men?
Oh,
All the President's Men.
All the President's Men. Room or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Butch Cassidy. I think we've hit the high water mark on. I
think that was it. All right, that's it. Number 14 on our flick chart. It's smack dab between Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Brazil.
Wow. Woo! Number 14 out of how many movies now?
That would be out of 227 or so.
I picked a good one, didn't I?
You crushed it. Dee Wallace for the win. We actually live in fear that at some point we're going to have a guest who brings a movie that we hate. We have yet to run into that, but thank you for keeping the streak alive.
Oh, come on. Your viewers will love that.
Out of 5 stars, where would you rate this?
4.
No, it's there's another site that we do. It's called letterboxd.com, and that's where we keep our film diary of all the films. We have a community of people over there who follow all of our write-ups for films, and so we do an aggregate star rating. Just out of 5 stars, for me, this is a 5-star movie, hands down. At 14 on our list, I can't go less than 5 stars.
If William H. Macy wasn't in it, it would be 5.
Because I am a wussy. It's a 5-star for me, despite William H. Macy.
See, I think the first half of it is 5-star, and the last half of it is 4-star.
That's still pretty high.
That is pretty.
Right. Yeah, so 4.5.
4.5. There you go.
Well, Dee, thank you so much for being here. This is as we wrap up. This is our big shot to hear what you are up to. Can you share with us what you're doing these days and what you're excited about?
What am I not doing? Well, I've already mentioned a lot of it. I've got a series on Amazon Prime. Binge watch, everybody, called Just Add Magic. I just finished that film called Red Christmas in Australia. I just had a fabulous Supernatural guest star on. Just booked a movie called, I'm not quite sure how to say it because I just booked it today. Ayla, Ayla. Really weird, bizarre, fabulous little film. And I'm waiting to hear if the series gets picked up, and I'm waiting to hear for a big movie that's trending already. Offers should be coming in any day. And, I do all my healing work. I've got a radio show on every Sunday morning. I want everybody to go to buppabear.com, BUPPA bear.com, and check out my new toy that I have, that Andy's beautiful daughter Olivia has one of.
She loves it.
I'm just out teaching people how to create their lives and be happier. So I'm doing a lot of stuff.
What fantastic stuff you do. This has been so great, Dee. I know you come on our little show. You don't really know us. You work mostly through Jody. We've been talking about you for years.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and so this is you've checked something off of both of our bucket lists tonight. So thank you so much.
I've had a ball. You guys are a hoot. I've never done anything like this before. It was a lot of fun. But I'm glad people can't see me without my makeup. I'm just saying. In most of my movies, I couldn't have looked much worse. So,
Oh, too funny. Well, definitely thank you again for joining us in the next Reels Speakeasy, Dee. And for you out there, we hope you enjoyed our show. If you like what you heard, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest, Letterboxd, and Flickchart. And don't forget to head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and comment. It really does help more people find us. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, good night, Sink. I love having these wonderful chats on movies we like with all these industry guests talking about some of their favorite movies.
So many great conversations on that show about so many great movies.
We have so much fun having these conversations, but producing the show week after week does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these incredible conversations.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material for all the adapted film discussions on the Next Reel's family of podcasts. Purchasing through our links supports the show.
It's your one-stop shop for Amazon and Apple links where you can buy your copy of the original source material.
Original material for movies we like, movies like Casino Royale,
The Silent Partner,
Never Let Me Go,
Silver Linings Playbook,
There Will Be Blood, based on Upton Sinclair's Oil.
I believe it's Oil!
Oh yeah, I forgot the exclamation point.
Plus, by using those links to buy your next read, Apple and Amazon show us a little bit of love, which allows you to support our family of shows with minimal effort.
thenextreel.com/originals. It's a great way to support the show and find your next page turner.
That's right. Head over to thenextreel.com/originals to pick out your next read and dig in today.